The DC Earth, home to some of the most powerful individuals in the entire universe, such as the members of the Justice League, the Justice Society, and other one-off members such as Black Adam, even Shazam. Also in which this Earth has survived at least 2 full-scale invasions, but would they be able to stop and survive another one? One with fortunately less numbers, but stronger opponents, the Viltrumites, who are a race of world-conquering aliens from the planet Viltrum, who have now set their sights on Earth. Can they succeed, or will they die trying to put Earth under the Viltrum Empire? And for this video, we will be using the live-action DCEU version of the Justice League and other DC heroes, and the Amazon show versions of the Invincible characters, because using each respective comic versions would be a stomp in the Justice League's favor, so this should even it out a little bit. Let's begin. Now, for the sake of the battle, let's set up a little story and narrative here. Let's say the battle takes place after the events of the Justice League movie, after Superman is resurrected and the League is actually formed, with members such as Batman, Cyborg, Aquaman, The Flash, Wonder Woman, and of course Superman. Also for this battle, we're gonna just assume the Justice Society, as seen in Black Adam, will also join forces with the League to defend Earth. And the Justice Society has members such as Hawkman, Dr. Fate, Atom Smasher, and Cyclone. Moving over to the Viltrumite side, we have of course Omniman leading this invasion on Earth, with the 3 other shown Viltrumites from the show so far, Lucan, Thula, and Vidor. And for the sake of padding this side's numbers, I'm going to be adding Invincible himself to the battle. So just pretend in this alternate universe, Nolan had a full-blooded Viltrumite son that he goes and conquers planets with, I don't know. But these 4, after scouting and seeing the most powerful heroes on the planet at the time, weakened from the failed invasion of Darkseid, the Viltrumites decided it was their turn to try a little game of conquering the planet Earth, leading us into the full-on war. Now, instead of wasting everyone's time, I'm just going to mainly go over the strongest heroes and characters on both sides, and then touch upon some of the weaker ones when needed, so we're not redundantly going over those who don't need to be. Anyway, starting with the DC side, as I said before, let's go top down, with none other than Superman himself, who should be the strongest member on the DC side, bearing maybe Dr. Fate, but we'll get to him a little later. Now, Superman's best feats include things like statuing the entire League and keeping pace with the Flash, who himself can go near light speed when needed. But when going to these speeds, we do see it tends to have drawbacks. So Superman should be comfortably massively hypersonic in combat speed. And for durability, we see him doing things like tanking nuclear explosions, smashing through mountaintops, taking hits from peers and other characters around his strength level, such as Doomsday, Zod, etc. We also get the general range of his strength, with him comfortably being above the rest of the League, while being able to damage and hurting other high-tier characters, such as Doomsday, Zod, and Steppenwolf, and accomplishing good feats of strength, such as lifting entire apartment buildings, pulling massive ships through thick sheets of ice, the infamous tectonic plate feat, which, even if true and you subscribe to the idea that he did that, it would be a massive outlier, as nothing else we see him do comes close to this type of feat. But for another chain of scaling, we also see Black Adam stop and hold up this massive statue, which should be in a thousands range of tons. And by all intents and purposes, Black Adam and Superman were hyped up as equals, or at least very relative to each other. He also possesses unique abilities, such as heat vision, which is able to melt steel in seconds, frost breath, among others, meaning altogether, this version of Clark should be around large mountain to island levels of power. While yes, many of the other League members fall under this scale of power, meaning weaker than him, they also have their own unique abilities or hacks to make up for it, such as the Flash's superior speed and Speed Force hacks, Cyborg's technological influence, Diana's combat prowess, Batman's intelligence, and Dr. Fate's magic, and so on. So all in all, making a competent team of pretty powerful heroes. But will this be enough to stop and defeat the Viltrumite invasion? Well, let's see. Now moving over to the other side, we have said Viltrumites, with the strongest and most powerful one here being none other than Omniman himself. So just like with the DC side, let's start at the top and go down. Some of Nolan's best feats include claiming to advert and move a meteorite the size of Texas, punching a mark so hard the shockwaves literally start to crack and crumble the mountains nearby, throwing and reacting to baseballs thrown around the entire world, and strong enough to blow parts of a mountain apart, and single-handedly lifting this massive portion of rock, which has been calculated to be within the hundreds of tons range, putting the strongest on-screen feat from the DC side in pure strength to shame, which would be lifting the statue, which is only in the 70 to 80,000 ton range. And for speed, we constantly see him getting the better of Immortal, who himself was stated to be Mach 3. He's also fast enough to blitz, outspeed, and react to Mark multiple times, who he himself is able to fly to the moon in seconds. And most famously, with pure speed alone, he is able to decimate the Flaxen homeworld, leaving what seems to be nuclear level type explosions by igniting the atmosphere in his wake. We also know that and see that Viltrumites are pretty tanky, especially Omniman, with feats such as tanking explosions, the force and gravitational pull of black holes, and it even being said it took experimental quantum bombs that destroyed most of Europe to even take him down. Viltrumites also have a unique ability to survive and not immediately die from attacks that should and would kill lesser beings, such as the beatings Mark took from Omniman, or having his stomach blown wide open from Battle Beast, etc. So with this now general idea of where his strength lies, I would pit Nolan and the rest of the Viltrumites, who are below him but still kind of comparable, as they are able to survive some of his attacks and hurt Omniman around country level, give or take. Now that I have gone over mainly what the strongest can do and how the rest of them fall under, let me explain how I see this battle going down, and finally answer the question of if the Justice League can prevail. I see it starting with the Viltrumites coming to Earth, causing chaos and killing all the resistance and lesser heroes and villains that originally will come their way, catching the attention of not only the Justice League, but the Justice Society. Now here's the thing about the Viltrumites. Not only are they ultra violent and have no problems killing you the moment they can, but they've also lived for hundreds and thousands of years, allowing them to gather many centuries of experience against all kinds of threats. And that their main goal is taking over Earth, not destroying it. So they definitely wouldn't go the route Omniman did on the Flaxen planet. Another downside for the heroes are, well, they're heroes, so they will hold back, especially towards the beginning of the fight. I suspect it would take losing a member before they really lock in and considering having to kill or switch to more drastic measures on these new opponents. And honestly, from shown and given feats, there is a decent gap in stats from the Viltrumites compared to the heroes. Like take Superman, their strongest hero. He was taken out of commission from a singular nuke. Now maybe you can argue this was less of the force of the nuke, but the radiation, but I digress. And when Omniman, and by extension the other Viltrumites who scale near him, was able to survive attacks and forces on similar levels with less damage. But you know what, for the sake of this video and prompt, let's just be generous and highball Superman and say he and Omniman are near equals, when originally Omniman would have the strength, durability, and experience advantage, with Superman maybe barely edging out combat speed, definitely not flight speed. But even if they were equals, there are 5 total Viltrumites on the field, with all of them being somewhat comparable to each other. You see where I'm going? But wait, Superman isn't the only one on the battlefield. What about the others, is what you might be saying. And you'd be right, the rest of the heroes have different hacks and abilities that could turn the tide, right? Well, no, not really. Now, Diana's sword might be able to cut the Viltrumites, but she is hilariously slower, and so are the rest of the main heroes, except Flash. But then again, the Flash doesn't really have anything in his arsenal to put anyone here down for good. His best bet would be playing support for his team, literally what Red Rush did for the Guardians of the Globe. Now, Dr. Fate might be able to do some stuff here, but at the same time, he and the rest of the Justice Society couldn't even contain Black Adam, who by actual feats is weaker than the Viltrumites. So unless the Doctor can do some mind hack stuff to shut them down from the inside out, he will be taken out relatively quickly, especially when the Viltrumites see his magic. And the other remaining members of the League don't really add anything meaningful to this battle. Batman, nothing in his standard on-hand gear can stop or prepare him for these opponents. Now let me say this though, they do have weaknesses that he could exploit if he had the infamous prep time, but that's certainly not the situation here, as this would be a surprise attack on Earth with no one knowing who they are. Aquaman? A slow brick who goes down after getting some hits in. Cyborg. Now unless he hacks nuclear codes to bomb the battlefield, nothing in his usual suit or armor can really do anything meaningful here. Atom Smasher, decently strong as he was able to replicate and hold the statue, but he is just too big of a target and is probably the first one dead. as any of the Viltrumites would just fly through him. Now, Hawkman is someone I see lasting a little bit longer than some of the other heroes, just because how versatile he is with his flight and with his unbreakable weapons and combat experience like we've seen against Black Adam, but he just doesn't have the power behind it. As seen against Black Adam, he was basically toyed with and was defeated moderately easily. So with the Viltrumites, who have no problem tearing him apart, his wings, his armor, his weapons, and killing him, unless Hawkman plays support, I see him going down relatively easy, but not before getting a couple decent hits in. Cyclone, her wind abilities might serve as a distraction for a bit, until Mark or someone else puts an end to her for cluttering up the battlefield. So after saying all that, overall, while the League's combined efforts might allow them to take down 1, maybe 2 Viltrumites if they play it smart, like giving Wonder Woman's sword to Flash and letting him slice them while Dr. Fate or Superman holds some of them down, I do think eventually the heroes do go down. Like, think back in Man of Steel, when 2 other Kryptonians arrived and attacked Superman. He was able to hold his own for a bit, but eventually they overwhelmed him. It would basically be that, but with 5 more or less Superman level characters versus everyone else, leaving this as another world brought into the Viltrum Empire. Anyways, if you've made it this far into the video, I want to thank you, and also to like, comment, and subscribe. Do you agree with what I've said, the points I've brought up, or do you think I'm wrong in some ways? Let me know in the comments. I will be happy to take a look and read them. Anyways, thanks for watching.